On today's World Insight, beacon of peace and sacrifice as China gears up to commemorate World War II victory with a grand military parade. What does revisiting history mean for China and the world? Answers from former Senior Colonel Zhou Bo.
Hello and welcome to World Insight with me, Tian Wei. On Wednesday, China will hold a grand military parade to mark the 80th anniversary of the victory in the Chinese People's War of Resistance against Japanese aggression and the World Anti-Fascist War. China has consistently advocated a multilateral approach to peaceful development. On these and more, I asked the Senior Colonel Zhou Bo, a senior fellow of Tsinghua University's Center for International Security and Strategy. Senior Colonel Zhou Bo, welcome to the program. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me here.
80th anniversary of Chinese People's War of Resistance against Japanese aggression and the World's Anti-Fascist War, the big parade to take place. Now, what do you make of the significance of this event?
Well, I think one of the great significance is to remind people actually the war against the fascists started much earlier than was talked about, because according to our history, actually, the Japanese invaded the northeast part of China in 1931, while in the West it's very much agreed that the war in Europe started with Nazi Germany's invasion of Poland in 1939. So there is a gap of 8 years. However, it does not mean that the world doesn't recognize China's great contribution. Otherwise, how could you explain that immediately after the war, China actually has become a permanent member of UN Security Council? Yeah, because China at that time was very much backward and poor. So it is because of your great contribution that is recognized worldwide. Therefore, you have a kind of institutionalized authority in UN. Look at the world now. How many countries are bidding to become a permanent member of UN Security Council, right? Be it Japan, be it Germany, or be it South Africa. So even in 1940s, China has become such an important member. That tells China's great contribution and recognition of the world of China's contribution.
And of course, this 80th anniversary also has attracted international dignitaries coming from all over the world, among them Russian President Vladimir Putin, as well as the leader of the DPRK, and those coming from Iran and some other countries. Now, Senior Colonel Zhou, what kind of message is this sending? And what kind of message do you think those that are coming to this ceremony is trying to send about China and themselves' relationship with China?
Well, first of all, it tells about China's growing importance, right? That is for sure. But when it comes to President Putin, I think it is just natural that he would definitely turn up, because President Xi went to Moscow to attend the parade. Therefore, it's reciprocal. So, and the relationship between China and Russia is extremely good. When it comes to the leader of DPRK, Mr. Kim Jong-un, that is an interesting question, because I have read the international media and found how surprised the international media was with his would-be presence in Tiananmen Square. But that should not come as a surprise. DPRK's history has a lot to do with their own anti-Japanese war, because Kim Jong-un's grandfather, Kim Il-sung, actually led guerrilla warfare in northeast part of China. That did not contribute that much to the whole victory of the Second World War, but that was the foundation of DPRK, which was hyped, understandably. Therefore, they do have a dual role in the Second World War. So therefore, it is reasonable for China to invite a close neighbor as well as a winner of the Second War to come to attend, right? I assume we should have extended a lot of invitation to many neighboring countries, but it's up to them, to whether they would come or not. But this time, he comes, and I think it is good for him to see how China looks today and how strong China's military is, and to see the future of People's Liberation Army.
Many are asking the question, the appearances of these international dignitaries, are they a reflection of tactical actions, or are they a reflection of strategic choices of these countries?
Well, first of all, you might ask a question of how the world look like, right? So whatever world order
It's
it
ever
is,
evolving.
yeah, people believe that it is moving towards the multipolarization, and that is the conclusion of Munich Security Conference this year. The title is just one word: multipolarization, right? So just to talk about SCO and the BRICS, what do they have in common? I believe they just reflect people's feeling about where the world is moving towards, right? So it's just like a train is already moving. People actually are not fully aware where the train would be heading for. But the answer is, I cannot afford not to be in the train. So this is why these two organizations are becoming more popular.
And certainly it is also, according to your reflection of the significance of this event as well, besides its historic significance marking the 80th anniversary.
Of course, yeah, it certainly has a historical significance. But these countries all know, yeah, how important China today, yeah, is. And China, of course, is a friendly country. And China's rise in the last 4 decades and plus, yeah, is just peaceful. So there's no reason why would they distance themselves, from China.
We know there is one dignitary coming from Western Europe, Slovakia, and there are also others coming from the developed countries. For example, those retired officials as well. So what kind of message is this sending? Is it going to be more a show of strength among the global south vis-a-vis the global north, or it is actually, as you said, a picture that is ever evolving?
Well, when people look at the same things, actually they are saying different things because they have different views, right?
Right.
So about this parade, it could be interpreted almost, in opposite directions. One is, of course, showing
Up
muscles.
to interpretation.
Yeah. One is showing muscles. Of course, this is kind of showing muscles. But on the other hand, I can also say this is an unprecedented effort of transparency, right? Don't you want to find out how strong PLA is? Haven't you been trying, all the year round to find out what has been going on? Oh, okay, here you are. These things are already deployed, right? See for yourself, right?
So let's go into details about what exactly the PLA is likely to demonstrate to the rest of the world. According to Chinese authorities, quoted in media reports, that all of the strengths of the Chinese PLA will be demonstrated on the Tiananmen Square are already those into operations. In other words, not from the labs, not from the plan books, but really in operations. But others are suggesting the world of combat have been changing over the past few years, including using of AI and information technologies. How will these different aspects likely to be reflected, Senior Colonel Zhou?
Remember the fact that last parade was done in 2019, right? So this one means another 6 years after what could we showcase, to the world. According to the spokesman, definitely we're going to show some new stuff, right? Including, like drones or anti-drones, weapons, these kind of things. That is extremely important because I believe the big stuff, like the ICBM, probably will be more or less the same because, it will take you quite a long time for you to develop these new ICBMs, and I don't believe there is such a need, because our capabilities of this estimate are well known. So look at the war in Ukraine. This is a question I was asked many times by the Western media. What has PLA learned from this war? Again, depends on who you are, right? Because when PLA Air Force look at this, they would look at the drones attacks, so on and so forth. And then PLA, ground force would have looked at this from their own angles. But after putting all this together, it definitely shows the importance of how modern warfare has changed with unprecedented use of drones and anti-drone systems, right? Because when do you learn the quickest? The answer is during the war. If you don't learn quickly, you will die, right? So just look at the beginning of the war. Yeah, Russia would even have to import drones from Iran. Right now, both sides would use drones massively, and the largest casualty caused, actually was by drones. So this already tells how the modern warfare has changed. So in this parade, if we have demonstrated drones was even demonstrated last time, right? Or even some system about anti-drone systems. That means how quickly, how closely we are monitoring the war, and how quickly we have already learned, because as you have said, that these systems are not those things that are under research and development. It's something that is already deployed. That means it's a demonstration of your existing capabilities. That shows how we are trying to keep pace with the latest development in modern warfare.
I see. On the other hand, the AI technology is developing very fast. Of course, it can be integrated in any kinds of weaponry system and combat systems. How do you see, Senior Colonel Zhou, as a seasoned military analyst, China has been adopting these technologies and can be, reflected in this latest parade?
Right now, how AI can be applied in military use, which is a must, is still not so certain. But actually, China and the United States have reached an understanding on the most sensitive issue, that is to make sure of a human oversight over command and control over nuclear weapons. So that means, you cannot let AI control nuclear weapons. I think that kind of decision is really wise, but it's also distinctive, right? Because people, by common sense, would understand how important it is to make sure human control of nuclear weapons. But then we have seen some other things. For example, in PLA's joint training with Cambodia, we have shown a mechanical dog, mounted with a rifle that could fire automatically, And it's not a secret that both Chinese military PLA and U.S. military, for example, are just thinking about this issue. I tell you what would happen in the international arms market in the years ahead, right? So right now, China ranks the fourth in terms of international arms trade, followed by United States, France, and Russia, and then China. But I believe in the world of tomorrow, there are only two systems in the world, American system and Chinese system. Why do I say that? American system, for example, is combat tested. It is expensive, and the allies would have to buy because they have to be correct politically, right? And even some partners would have to buy. Then, why do I talk about the Chinese system becoming the second one? Because Chinese system is affordable, because Chinese system is good, but the most important of all is that in the future, there are only two dominant centers in the world for AI, the United States and China. So in the future, you do not just buy a few weapons. You have to buy a system which is fully integrated with AI, for example. And these two countries are the strongest country in AI. So that means that will dominate the future. Sometimes I even wonder, even if you start to buy a few, French Rafale aircraft, I don't want to say whether it is good or not. But maybe it takes 5 years for the final delivery to be accomplished. And it takes you another 5 years to have your pilots fully trained. After 10 years, probably we will enter an area when no man, combat vehicle will appear. So maybe in 10 years' time, there would be less pilots.
based on what the parade is likely to send signals to the rest of the world, what kind of signal do you think, Senior Colonel Zhou, should be sophisticatedly sent by China to this parade about what it wanted to do with the Taiwan issue to keep the peace and stability across the Taiwan Straits?
Well, I think after watching this parade, people will be impressed that if anyone wants to fight with PLA, well, it would be really, really tough, right? So better not to fight with this armed forces. That definitely should be the message, yeah. And then people should also be aware of the fact that China's rise has been peaceful. From March 1979, when China finished the last conflict with Vietnam, actually China has entered into no war with any other countries. So that tells more than anything that China's rise is peaceful, and that is already a miracle in human history. So this is unprecedented. Right now, PLA has a lot of operation overseas, be it peacekeeping, counter-piracy, disaster relief, whatsoever. So PLA has not even killed a single foreigner. But think of another fact, that is how many wars the United States has launched, even after the Cold War, and how many excuses the United States has been using, in justifying these wars. And who care about these bloody excuses anymore, right? People died. And even Americans would conclude these wars in Afghanistan, right, and in Iraq, are just but a waste of money. And it cost people's lives, right? So sometimes I think about this fact. Well, the United States should have more than enough clever people. And why would they make such big mistakes one after another, right? So then you come to China to think how rational, at least, it is for us, to just embark on the road of peaceful development. But sometimes there is a cost, and sometimes you have to bear with it. On some tragic incidents, like the collision of Chinese and American aircraft in South China Sea, like NATO's bombardment on China's embassy in former Yugoslavia. So that means our peaceful development is not by sheer luck. It is hardly earned. It is hard earned, right? And we have with our sacrifice, with our resilience, with our patience, and that is why we are here today.
Right. Senior Colonel Zhou, since you mentioned China has been having peace with its neighbors and beyond since 1979. Now, a question also raised, for example, in commentaries in Western media, whether the things being shown at the parade by the Chinese PLA are likely to be efficiently integrated when needed in any combat situation.
Well, that is for sure, of course. This is your capability, right? And the capabilities could be applied if you have such intention. The only question is when you want to use it and where you are going to use it.
But how to use it, whether that system, not only hardware, but also software, will be able to organize everything together.
Well, it depends on scenarios, right? It depends on what kind of scenarios you have in mind. And, as a PLA veteran, I should know, at least for each contingency, we should have plan A, B, C, D, right? So it really depends on the scenarios.
That's just common sense, the Taiwan issue. Now, Senior Colonel Zhou, what kind of message do you think this parade is going to show to the rest of the world about what China wants to do on that issue?
Well, that's a good question, because the fact is that China, as well as PLA, are growing stronger. Then it actually leads to a question which actually could separate to go in two different directions. One is, well, would a stronger China become more confident about no use of force, or would China, or stronger China, become more impatient to actually use force earlier, right? So these are two totally different directions as a result of a stronger China. But I would argue that the Chinese government is still having patience. In President Xi's talks to Ma Ying-jeou, the ex-Taiwanese leader, he still talks about peaceful reunification. So that means China still has not lost patience, and China is still confident. But look at what is happening in Taiwan Island. This Taiwanese leader, Lai Ching-te, is unprecedentedly provocative. Yeah, compared even with his predecessor, he's much, much more provocative. Even before taking office, he has described himself as a practical Taiwan independence worker. And the facts that shows that he probably is really ordering his words, because he would describe the Chinese mainland as a hostile foreign force, right? So that is not far away from this kind of two-state theory, which definitely is opposed by the Chinese mainland. Actually, what he said reminded me one of his predecessors, Chen Shui-bian, who asked for referendum, for example, and the United States has accused, Chen Shui-bian reportedly, President Bush called him a troublemaker.
Right.
So this time, I'm actually wondering, what kind of message could Trump send to Taiwanese authority? Because so far, he hasn't talked much about Taiwan issue. He actually didn't talk much about his China strategy, so on and so forth. But I believe this is the right message he should send to the Taiwanese authority. This is another troublemaker, at least, right? And having a war with China it certainly would not serve American interest. I think more and more people in the United States are talking about not having a war with China. Sometimes I have to compare Chinese military with Russian military, right? Look at the war in Ukraine. The America and its allies have refrained from sending troops to fight in Ukraine. And why is that? So, and why would they necessarily send troops to fight for Taiwan, right? So, if I compare these two, my question is natural. Is PLA necessarily inferior to the Russian military? It's difficult for you to agree to that. China's defense budget is 1/4 of American budget, but it is 3 times bigger than Russian defense budget. Chinese armed forces is largest in the world. Chinese Navy has the largest number of ships in the world. So the only aircraft carrier in Russia is not moving anywhere, where we already have 3, and probably are going to build more. So with this comparison, my conclusion is, well, do not underestimate PLA to think it is inferior in capability to Russian military. So then this is the question for the U.S. to think about.
Right. The other thing, of course, is the South China Sea. Once again, Senior Colonel Zhou, we talked about that several times, but things are still evolving. Your thoughts?
Well, actually, in South China Sea, the danger is not China having a war with any other ASEAN claimants. The reason is precisely because the Chinese military has dominant, overwhelming military superiority over any of these other claimants. And we have pledged, according to a joint declaration in 2001, that we should not use force, right? So I don't believe that there is such a possibility. But the real danger is, again, between China and the United States because of closing American reconnaissance and surveillance. So to put it in a more simple way, the danger in South China Sea is that Chinese and American military aircraft and ships sometimes are getting too close to one another. And the reason behind is because the Americans keep on sending ships and aircraft for closing reconnaissance and surveillance. And the PLA would not tolerate that because we believe it is our territory, it is our territorial sea, it is territorial space. And according to Pentagon, Chinese have done more than 180 interceptions of American aircraft in 2 years' time. That would actually mean every interception in every 4 days. So this kind of frequency, of course, is alarming, right? Because this would create enough opportunities for a dangerous collision. And right now, the public opinion in both China and the United States have changed. They are becoming more nationalistic. So just to imagine another collision as what happened in 2001, probably the response from both sides would not be so easy to come down, because that incident, however serious it was actually resolved within 11 days after the United States said sorry 2 times.
Well, eventually, we are likely to see a great parade in which strength will be demonstrated, but at the same time, a strength for confidence of peace and to deter any danger of wars. Senior Colonel Zhou, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, sir.
Thank you.
That's my latest conversation with Senior Colonel Zhou Bo on the upcoming parade in Beijing. And that's all the time we have for today. If you'd like to know more, search World Insight or check out our YouTube channel. Follow us on X and Facebook. I'm Tian Wei on behalf of the team. Thanks for being with us, and I'll see you tomorrow from the Tiananmen Square.